not fair, but I think statistically it's probably true, to make sure that they're supported in their careers and can continue in a way that their children can be safely taken care of and responsibly taken care of, and they can pursue their careers. And to me, that's really what we're talking about here.
Next, we're going to hear from Dr. Jessica Gogarty. She's the principal at Central Academy here in Des Moines.
Hello.
Nice to see you.
Another word for regulation is protection. To what degree should the federal government provide guidance to schools and universities investigating sexual misconduct cases under Title IX regulations?
So I think in the introduction, they said that I was on the board of Stanford University. And in colleges, as I found out being on the board of one, they spend an enormous amount of time dealing with the sexual interactions of people on campus and the inappropriateness, and it's a very murky area. But let me say this, I think it is appropriate for the government to come in with rules about behavior. And I think my experience is that actually providing guidelines of what's right here is something that is appropriate to apply to schools to make it easier for them. And I think that when you get it wrong, it has terrible ramifications. And when you get it right, I think it leads to a much healthier atmosphere on campus. And so I'm in favor. And I'll tell you a story. When I was in grad school, my brother is 1 year older than I am. I have 2 older brothers. And my brother started something called the Rape Education Project. And it was in 1982. And I said, Jim, what are you doing? And he goes, people don't understand what's going on. It's date rape. And it's important for people to start to understand this and to have guidelines and to make sure that, in fact, those guidelines are kept and that people are protected. And that's actually what I believe.
Now, we did receive some questions from students asking about immigration online. I want to bring up one that we got from somebody specifically discussing healthcare. As you know, 10 candidates raised their hands on the debate stage back in June when asked if they would provide free healthcare to undocumented immigrants. Would you do so as president?
So let me go back a step before I say yes, and that's this. We have a failed immigration policy. We have a policy where we have 11 to 13 million people living in our country. Some of them have been living here for 2 decades and more, and they have no documents. They work here, they pay taxes here, their kids go to school here, but they're effectively in the shadows. They have no legal, identity. Any responsible government would have solved this problem more than a decade ago. We can't do it. Our government is failing. It is unable to deal with the basic responsibilities of a government. So this question actually is, when you have a failed society, it's not a failed society, a failed government, how do you plug the holes in that boat? So instead of getting a boat that's seaworthy, we have a boat that's leaking all over the place, and instead of getting a new boat, the answer is, do you want to plug the hole? Because this question is really hard, particularly in the States where not every American citizen has health care. So it's one of those questions, there are a lot of implications that you haven't answered. So let me say, before I say anything about undocumented people in the United States, I believe every American citizen has an absolute right to health care. And so there is nobody in this country who's a citizen who I believe does not have a constitutional right in the 21st century to health care. So if you assume that, then the next question is, in this country with the government failing and unable to deal with 11 million people living here without papers, do you believe those people should have access to health care as well? Because I also believe that they should have a path to citizenship. So the answer to the question is, yeah, I do. But there are a lot of implications here about all the other things I believe that aren't asked specifically in that question. But the fact of the matter is, I believe every American has a right to health care. I believe that we need to have a comprehensive immigration reform, give people legal status and a path to citizenship. And along that path, I believe they have a right to health care.
Now, I want you to think of your youth not too long ago. What early experience or lesson shaped you into the person you are today?
Okay, so let me say this. I don't know what you guys know about me, but I am a super lucky guy. I have 2 older brothers, and when I was growing up, I thought that I was normal because I knew exactly where I was going to go to bed at night. I knew that I was going to have a warm meal with my family. I knew that my mother was going to come in and say prayers with me before I went to bed and read me a story. And I thought that everyone in the United States had that. And it's not true. There are a lot of kids who don't know where they're going to put their head down, don't know if they're going to get a hot meal, don't know who's going to put them to bed, and maybe no one's going to read them a story or say prayers with them. So I've discovered how lucky I was, and my parents made sure I got a great education and really took care of me in a way that I'm very grateful for. So what happened to me that gave me a broader perspective than just what happened within my immediate family, which was very nurturing and positive? Believe it or not, the thing that gave me access to more parts of society and different people was sports. The 2 sports that I played most seriously in high school and college were basketball and soccer. And so I'm from New York. If you play basketball in New York and you travel around New York playing pickup basketball, which I did, you meet everybody in New York. And you spend time with them, and it's pretty intense. And if you play soccer, and you play pickup soccer, I don't think I played pickup soccer with 10 people who were actually born in the United States of America. Everybody was foreign born, and from every continent, because that's the world game. So for me, the thing that actually was the most educational in terms of learning about other people, spending real time, being really involved with people from completely different backgrounds, was basketball and soccer. And so actually, it's intense. I loved it. I mean, I wasn't doing it as a sociological experiment. I was doing it because I loved to play sports. But what it really meant was I was involved with people from every single part of the city and from every single background. And it really gave me a lot of confidence in going to different places and feeling comfortable with people, knowing that, as a matter of fact, we love doing exactly the same things, and we got the same pleasures and the same disappointments.
Thank you. Please feel free to have a couple minutes of closing remarks. You can have 2 more minutes of closing remarks.
So I think that there are 2 big challenges for the United States. One of them is we need to stabilize our climate. And I believe that if you take a look, I'm the most aggressive, most serious person about climate in this race. And you can look at my history and see that I actually have the most history of not only working on it, but succeeding on it, of passing things and making things happen. The second thing we need to do is our government, I believe, and I've spent 10 years thinking about it, has been bought by corporations, and it's completely broken. And we need to take it back. I mean, you should know all the things. 80% of American voters think corporations have bought our government, and I'm in the 80%. Literally think that the government does not serve the people but serves corporations. If we meet those 2 challenges, though, if we stabilize the climate, and I'm dead serious about it, and if we take back the government from corporations, we are in the best position of any people in the history of the planet. All the things that Democrats are talking about, we can afford. Every one of them. We can afford healthcare as a right. We can afford the kind of academic experience from pre-K through college that everybody wants. We have the money to do that. We can afford a living wage. You guys aren't in the working world, but right now it's extremely inequitable in terms of how people get paid. And we can afford to have clean air and clean water in every part of the United States. No one has a right to poison you or your family so they can make more money, period. So when I listen to these debates sometimes, I hear two things that I don't agree with. One is talking about a bunch of policies that until we take back the democracy, we can't get. But the other one is it sounds like we're just a series of failures. We are the most successful society in the history of this planet. We have a failed government. We're not a failed society. So if we take back our government, if we do those things, we have to call them out, we have to make them happen structurally, and then we're in a position where your generation will have the best guaranteed standard of living of any people in the history of the world. You guys can make this century not just another American century, but where we really actually do live the promise of America. Lead the world morally, intellectually, from a commercial standpoint, and from a research standpoint. That's what Americans have done. We're the technological leaders, but we're the moral leaders. And if you guys show out, we have to do it politically. We have to have this huge win, but if we do those two things, you guys will not only get a world that's better than the one that we got, you'll pass on a world to your kids that's better than the ones that you're gonna get. And that's the promise of America. We have to meet these two challenges, but guess what? All of your ancestors met those challenges. There is nothing that says Americans don't come through in the clutch. And so that is exactly where we are on this. In my opinion, the chips are totally down. So that's why we organize young people, because if you guys show up and the rest of American listen to the truth of where we really are, we can put ourselves in a better position than you guys understand. Better, more broad, more just, and that's what I'm asking you guys to do. Thank you.
Good. Go ahead and take a quick picture with this shirt. Thank you, sir. Why don't you hold this end? There we go. Wonderful job. This is a gift to you. Thank you, sir. Ladies and gentlemen, that concludes today's program. I'd like to thank the candidates who took the time to attend and listen to the students of Iowa, and extend my gratitude to the Des Moines Public Schools and Des Moines Register for amplifying the voices of Iowa's youth. As you can see from today's event, we are not single-issue voters. Today's questions were a reflection of the diversity of concerns held by Iowa's youngest electorate. Each and every voice counts in highlighting the issues that too often go unheard, and I am left hopeful that you will drive that motivation and desire for a better America to the voting booth on November 3rd, 2020. See you in 4 years. Thank you so much.